And welcome to the December 13th, 2023 Town of Littleton Board of Health meeting. We're going to start with our 7 o'clock public hearing for 1 Monarch Drive for a local upgrade approval for tank outlets. Sue Carter, I believe you're here to speak on behalf of 1 Monarch Drive. Could you raise your hand for me just so I know that was correct? I was correct. All right, we're going to promote you. You should see it pop up in a moment.
Sorry about that. A little slow getting going tonight. For the record, I'm Sue Carter from Places Associates. I've been before the board several times regarding 1 Monarch Drive. Just a quick recap. This is the existing building at 1 Monarch Drive where we were in conjunction with the VMD warehouse for pods. They had to rebuild their septic system. The leaching field is behind the new building out there, which is the Pods warehouse. And because it's in a zone 2, it was required to have pre-treatment for the effluent prior to discharge into the new leaching area. We've asked for this meeting tonight. The site has been completed. In reviewing the as-built, Jim Gariffi asked why. Well, actually, let me tell you, with the septic tech system, we have 2 large 8,000-gallon tanks, and there are multiple connections to it. And the feed between the 2 tanks is actually below the 2 to 3 feet below the water table. When my office went back and initially looked at the DEP provisional approval for this system, they clearly acknowledged that the pipes could be below the water table. And it said that, if it is within an inch of the water table or below the water table, they had to have neoprene boots and the connecting pipes had to be waterproof. This is what we used when we designed the system, and it was constructed in that manner, fully inspected by Jim Gariffi. Jim and I have been speaking for the past week. He is uncomfortable with the septic tech approval that says you're allowed to be below the water table. He feels that we need a local upgrade approval for that. We pointed out the fact that DEP has not referred to any of the permits needed in that provision, but he felt that better safe than sorry, and he recommended that we get on your agenda to get a local upgrade approval. If that's what we need to do to get it done, we're okay with that. We have a disagreement in part, but if he feels that that's the best solution, we're fine. And that is the reason why we're here tonight. If the board would like, I have some diagrams of what the septic tech system looks like, and I can show you that if I can share the screen.
That would be great, and go ahead.
Okay. Let me get the right one. Okay. So this is the layout of the septic tech. You can see that it's typical septic tank going into these chambers. There's 2 8,000-gallon tanks in series. There are multiple connections to this tank for pumping for force mains. What happens is the effluent comes in from the septic tank into these the STAR system. It filters through the medium. Some of the effluent is pumped back to the septic tank, and you can see we have 5 different effluent pumps that will be pumping back to the septic tank. On this side of the tanks, we have a series of vents, and then we have the final force main that goes out to the leaching area. This shows it in plan view, how they all interconnect. And I'm going to show you next what the provisional approval was from DEP. Sorry, I thought I had it. It clearly says in the special conditions, any system structures with exterior piping connections located within 12 inches or below the estimated seasonal high groundwater elevation shall have the connections made watertight with neoprene seals or equivalent. And this is where the question comes in, and that Jim felt because it's connected to the septic tank with pipes, he felt it was safer to have the board vote under the local approving authority or local approval to allow these pipes to be below the water table. My office's comment is that in other sections of this approval, they refer back to Title V and apply provisions of Title V. This one did not apply any of the provisions that would normally be for local upgrade approval. And that is where we said if that's what we need, we will go to the board for it. In this case, because of the elevation of the existing building, we think we figured out why the line was so deep. It's because there's an existing grease trap on the other side of the building. There was no opportunity to raise these pipes. If we go back to the plan view, you can see it's several feet below the inlet pipe. So there was no opportunity to raise those tanks to meet that criteria of having it above the water table. When we were before the board, when I was before your board, I think it was a year ago or more, regarding the offset to the water table, we had viewed this in light of the Title V or the DP approval as not being necessary. And if the board feels it is, we apologize. We did not, a difference of interpretation. So that is why we were here before you tonight. The system is totally installed. Jim's comments, if I may switch to that. Actually, I'm not sure how to switch to the other screen. Well, Jim's approval, he explained that we could not have, the plumbing wouldn't have allowed us to be higher, that the treatment tanks, the septic tech will receive regular operational and maintenance inspections. And he asked the engineer to contact the septic tech representative to determine what, if additional inspections would be needed to be added to the existing O&M plan to check the inverts for leaks. We have a letter here from, let me just zoom out a little bit this is from J&R Sales. They are the representative for Septic Tech. And in this letter, they have said that their service group, Wastewater Treatment Services, will be providing the operation and maintenance for this facility. As part of our standard practice, we would inform the owner if tank levels deviate from normal operating elevations. So we feel that we met Jim's criteria for that. And then the other comment that Jim had was, as part of the inspection of the system, the tanks were tested to determine they were watertight, parentheses, they were, and the tank does have precast rubber / neoprene boots built into the tanks. And Jim went on further to say that his rationale for keeping the tank inverts above the estimated water table is to minimize the potential for groundwater into the tanks. The tanks were tested to ensure they were watertight. The tanks have the cast-in-place rubber neoprene boots for the pipe connection, and the tanks will also be inspected on a regular basis. So we respectfully request that the board grant local approval upgrade for this to allow these pipes to be below the water table.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Before I read Jim's comments, I had two quick questions, if that's okay. Yep. So it sounds like this is a bit of a hybrid system using existing piping out of One Monarch into an existing septic tank, and correct, then have added on the Septic Tech system for nitrogen reduction and pretreatment. the existing septic tank, are the groundwater offsets for the plumbing on that, are they above 12 inches off of the groundwater, or are those also less than 12 inches out of the groundwater?
They're less than 12 inches, but more than 1 inch, which is what the board granted us previous approval for. And the invert into the Septitech system itself is above the water table by several inches.
All right, great. I do know when you were before us before, there's also a question about amount of fill over the tanks, that it's requirement of less than 3 feet, waivable up to 6 feet. Obviously, we're long past that now, but I'm just kind of curious. Do you have a final fill amount over those tanks?
I don't, but I can open the plans quickly and get it for you.
All right. No, I'm just kind of curious, guys. That was certainly one of the things that we had discussed in the past. And certainly if I believe as part of the Septitech system, you need quarterly inspection. So if we're looking at more than 6 feet underground, I'm just concerned, curious. I'm curious about that.
I don't believe it's more than 6 feet. I believe it's more in the 4 to 5 foot range. And they do have manhole hatches with stairs so they can get down into the system for the appropriate monitoring and maintenance as needed.
All right. No, great. That was all my quick questions. All right. Sorry about that. Thank you for indulgence. I'm going to read the board, Mr. Greffy's notes regarding One Monarch. I did talk to him this afternoon as well, so I will share some of that if we get that far. And then we'll go to the board and any audience members. So for One Monarch Drive from Jim Greffy, our health agent, the sewage disposal system has been installed at the above mentioned address. The system was an upgrade to replace the existing system in conjunction with the land division. The existing system had to be moved as it was located on the new lot and near proposed new building. The replacement system includes wastewater treatment to improve the quality of effluent prior to discharge to the ground. The as-built plan for the system was reviewed in conjunction with the issuance of a certificate of compliance for the system, and the review noted the outlet and inlet invert elevations between the two Septitech treatment tanks were below the estimated groundwater table. Title V requires tank inlet and outlet pipes to be at least 1 inch above estimated groundwater table. The design of the treatment tanks has one tank flow by gravity into the second tank. The tanks work together to provide treatment, emergency storage space, and in the event of a power outage, above the working level of the treatment equipment. Basically, the top part of the tank remains empty, and it provides emergency overflow storage. The storage requirement and the gravity flow between the tanks resulted in the inlet from one tank and the outlet to the other tank being installed below the estimated groundwater table, approximately 2 to 3 feet. The elevation of the existing plumbing from the building would not have allowed the tanks to have been raised to avoid this issue. Title V allows boards of health to consider a local upgrade approval to allow for the inverts to be below the estimated groundwater table. Additionally, Mass DEP approval letter from the treatment equipment addresses the construction of inverts below the estimated groundwater table. The approval specify the exterior piping needs to be sealed with hydraulic cement or with cast in place neoprene boots. This is how the connection have been constructed for this project already. Listed below are the considerations for requested local upgrade approval. 1. The existing plumbing could not have been raised to allow the tanks and invert elevation to be raised above the estimated groundwater level. The treatment tanks, the Septitech system, will receive regular operation and maintenance inspections, and I have asked the engineer to contact Septitech representative to determine that what, if any, additional inspections would need to be added to the existing O&M plan to check those inverts for leaks. Number 3, the effluent from the wastewater treatment system will be tested as part of the O&M plan, and the Board of Health will receive those reports for review. The board can monitor the operation and maintenance of the treatment system. And part 4, as part of the inspection of the system, the tanks were tested to determine if they were watertight. They were. And the tanks have precast rubber neoprene boots built into the tanks. The rationale for keeping the tank inverts above the estimated water table is to minimize the potential for groundwater entering the tanks. The tanks were tested to ensure they are watertight, and the tanks have cast-in-place rubber neoprene boots for the pipe connection. The tanks will also be inspected on a regular basis through the O&M plan. The existing conditions on the site have resulted in a need for this request. The manner in which the tanks were constructed provides the required measures to allow your board to consider the request, and with the regular inspections for operation and maintenance, I do not see an issue granting this request. Having talked to Jim in person this afternoon, basically as Ms. Carter has said, the concern is the regs don't call out these types of systems for that groundwater offset. The approval letter from DEP, shows it can be below the water line. It doesn't really address when it's both, when it connects back to the system. So Jim's concern was that letter of the regs, completely in compliance. But the regs are a little bit old, and these systems are newer than the regs. So his concern that, basically, as he said, was that having it connected to the primary chamber, that water entry through the treatment system could then also backflow into the primary chamber, which is covered under Title V. So that was kind of where his piece was and why he asked the petitioner to come before the board, because it's letter of the law, it's not really gray zone. But because it is connected to a part that is also not gray zone, the primary tank was his, I don't want to say concern, but he just wanted to make sure that we were well aware of the situation and that we were proactive about it and we were prepared. So I'm now going to open it up to the board. I'm going to go alphabetical if that's okay. So we'll start with Kevin Baker. Any questions, comments, concerns for the petitioner?
I'm just curious why the primary tank was left in place.
Oh, the primary tank is the septic tank.
Yeah,
And
why
it
was
was-
it left and not put a new tank in?
Well, putting a new tank wouldn't have made any difference on the elevations, but it was left in place because it was in the zone of the building foundation. And the concern was that building already shows signs of settling and that it could undermine the foundation. So the concern was to protect the existing building.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kevin Baker. Kevin Davis.
So I know I asked the question earlier, because I remember you've been before the board a whole bunch and that kind of good stuff. So I remember asking the question before if you found the outlet from the old building, and you're like, we checked, we moved things around, we still haven't found it. We don't know if we could reroute it, yada yada yada. And so it just begs the question again, and it kind of falls back on what Kevin Baker was talking about earlier. Is where if there was any way to change the outlet from the building to change to increase the gradient of the whole thing. And I know the previous times you said no, because we don't know exactly where everything is and we're digging in the foundation again and all this stuff. So why wasn't that a consideration other than those other issues?
When they went out in the field and started to investigate, the as-built for lot 1 showed a grease tank in the front, and that didn't make sense with what they were finding in the field, so they did more explorations. Turns out the grease trap is in the back of the building, and the line comes under and through the building to go into the septic tank. So when that was discovered, it kind of made sense, but we didn't want to go down that path to find out why somebody did it that way, rather than putting the grease trap out front as it was shown on the as-built plan. But we believe that was probably the driving force between having the inverts so deep. So Jim had us document where what information we could get from the grease trap in the back, on the back side of the building.
So in the 80s, when this thing was built, it was built wrong according to plans, and the as-built were wrong as they were submitted to the town.
Yeah. Well, as far as the grease trap was shown, yes.
Statement still correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Jim and I talked about it, and we both decided we didn't want to go there because there's no good answer, and we don't know what happened.
And
Baker. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Mr. Davis, go ahead.
go ahead, Mr. Baker. I'm formulating a question, so I need some time.
I'm curious, and this might be a silly question. Does this type of building require a grease trap as you have it now?
They have a cafeteria, so they do need a grease trap, and they need an external grease trap. And for some reason, it's on the back side of the building, which is closest to where their cafeteria is. It, that's all I can say. I have no idea why.
Thank you.
Okay.
You know, when Jim and I talked about it, it would have made sense for them to have all the plumbing come out in the back of the building since you were pumping it anyways. So we have no idea why it ended up the way it was.
And there was no way of changing it from the output of the grease trap, abandoning the pipe that's underneath the foundation of the building and routing it around.
To be honest with you, I never ran the numbers on that, but it would have had to be, it's a fairly long run because it's at the, bend in the building in the backside. So I never ran the numbers, but it was also a concern of proximity to the foundation for excavations again.
Okay.
And also where the
Alright.
building sewer currently comes out deep. We're not sure it would have gained us anything. May be on the grease trap, but not on the building sewer.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the board? All right, the chair doesn't have any questions this time. Any questions from the audience? I don't see any hands. So we have the option of taking no action, as that there is, by the letter, there isn't a requirement for it. We can grant a local upgrade, which may or may not be necessary to allow the connections be below the high water table. That's pretty much where we are. We can either choose to grant it and it's done. We can choose not to grant it, and therefore it would be a what action does the board and our health agent as our agent takes based on a difference of opinion between what the regulations actually require. Which my personal assumption would be, if we challenge the existing installation saying that it was not in compliance, it would, without, my guess would be the petitioner and the owner of the property would challenge that decision, and the next step up from the Board of Health for a challenge to our to a Board of Health decision would be Superior Court, which would mean, therefore, we would have to both justify our actions and they would have to justify why they felt that they were correct. So that means court, which is certainly perfectly reasonable if that's the route we want to go. It's whether we think the regulations as written would support that decision from our part. Mr. Baker, go ahead.
I was going to make a motion to approve a local upgrade to allow for the inverts to be below the estimated groundwater table with the quarterly reports from the wastewater company noting that the neoprene boots are in fact in working order and the levels of the tanks did not deviate from the normal operation.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Not yet. I would like to enhance that a little bit, and that the reports get sent to our board representative on a quarterly basis, and that if there is a sign of failure, that they need to be addressed within 30 days or some number of days. I don't know what would be appropriate. Right? Does that make sense, Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, what do you think as far as the number of days? Because I'd like to put something in there that's like 10 days, 15 days, something short, because it's causing groundwater to not only get into the system, but it's also causing groundwater to possibly be, yeah.
So as part of their O&M requirement anyway, as part of the system, they're going to be doing quarterly inspections of the system and issuing reports based on that. Those reports as part of that agreement should be, but I'm sure that we can strengthen that and say quarterly reports have to come to the Board of Health. You know, and I think as soon as it comes to our agent and that agent reviews, you know, from our side, it's going to be an order of correction or investigation
Okay.
and notify the board. So I think
You don't need
we
the
can
teeth on
certainly-
the other. You don't need the teeth on the other thing to say that if there's an issue that they have a certain number of days, it's all part of the.
I mean, I think that's going to come from, you know, our agent issuing an order of correction. You have an issue, issuing an order of correction.
Okay.
The owner can appeal that decision. It comes before the board, you know, for our next one for appeal the decision, as with any other, you know,
Okay.
order of correction.
Okay.
Unless it, you know, and truthfully, the agent can certainly bump that up if they choose to, saying this is emergent and we require,
Mm-hmm.
you know, an emergency hearing to manage this
Yeah.
appeal because it can't go 2 weeks or 3 weeks till our next meeting.
Roger that. Yep.
Certainly we could say, I'm not sure what their process is from the O&M folks. If, you know, the reports need to be forwarded to the Board of Health and its agent within 5 days, 10 days. I don't want to make this onerous for the folks who are doing the testing and the reporting, but I would hate to get it 6 months later. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm not sure what might be reasonable. And I do have a hand in the audience, but we'll ask, Ms. Carter, do you have a sense of what might be reasonable for a reasonable, but reasonably short timeline for that report to be generated and shared with the board?
I would think within 2 weeks. And that gives them time, if they're waiting for any of the water quality tests to come back from the lab so they could get it, and make the report complete rather than giving you an inspection report and still have some of the outstanding water tests, remaining.
Yeah, I think that would be the friendly amendment. Would be the 2 weeks. And I'm good with. Then I would with those friendly amendments. Mr. Baker, I would second it if you're okay with that.
Okay, we have a motion second on the floor. I do have a hand in the audience. So as part of our discussion before our vote, I'm going to go to the audience. I'm not sure her name. It's Chitech Tubutu SmartPad E200. I'm going to allow you to talk from the audience for the moment, if that's okay. All right, you should be available to speak. Chitech Tubutu SmartPad. That's the best I have for a name. So if your hand is up in the audience, you are open and should be allowed to speak.
I can't get in.
You're here.
I'm here. The question is, I can't get in the stupid computer.
Gino.
My computer.
Gino. Gino.
My
Okay.
telephone don't work.
Okay.
Join the
One moment.
panelist.
One moment, Gino. We didn't know. 1 second. We're bringing you forward.
Can you see me now?
No, but we can hear you plenty, sir.
Yeah, but it's not fair. I wanted to see you guys. I want people to see me too.
Wow.
This is my third time that I'm trying to make start my video. While using the app,
Okay.
only this time, don't allow. What's going on with these people here?
Okay. Thank you, Gino. We understand you want to be on video. We appreciate that you're here at the meeting. I'm not sure how much of the discussion you have been able to hear. So I'm going to leave that up to you of what you feel comfortable, what actions you feel comfortable taking on the motion on the floor.
Oh boy.
Gino, do you have any discussion for the motion on the floor?
My discussion is I'm going with Kevin Baker and the other gentleman.
Okay, so we have no other discussion on the floor for the motion to grant a local upgrade approval for the have the inlet outlet below the surface of below the groundwater level with O&M reports quarterly to the Board of Health and its agent within 14 days of each report. Roll call vote, alphabetical, Kevin Baker.
Kevin Baker votes yes.
Kevin Davis,
Kevin Davis votes yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. All right. Thank you, Ms. Carter. We appreciate your work on this. It sounds like
Thank
it's
you,
continuing to
everyone.
be a challenging project that just gets more and more challenging, but
I think we're all relieved to see this one finally get finished. And hopefully the next time we've all learned a lot from this and we will make it much easier than any subsequent ones. Thank you very much and happy
right.
holidays, everyone.
thank you, ma'am. Have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, we're obviously a little bit past our 7:10 public hearing for 23 to 31 Stevens Street for a Title V waiver and a shared system agreement. We should have the law offices of Thomas A. Gibbons representing, which I believe is Attorney Emily Langlis. Stand by, Emily. I'm going to promote you to panelist. You should see it pop up in a moment.
Come on.
Alrighty. Hello.
Good evening and welcome to the Board of Health.
Thank you. Alrighty. So, originally tonight, we were going to come in with a shared system agreement kind of tailored to our situation. And I did receive Jim's notes, around 3:00 today, which kind of in turn, suggested, a variance instead of kind of going with that agreement based on his interpretation of the provisions here. So I think our situation's a little bit different. So what we're originally here for the Title V waiver. Our system failed, but we're going to be hooked up to the town sewer system, hopefully in the next few years. And throughout that process, Jim realized that the system here was, there was 2 properties that were using the same system, and in turn, one of the properties were sold. So now, they were owned by the same owner, and now we're owned by 2 separate owners, which turned it into a shared system under the Title V provisions. So, in changing it into a shared system, the board needs to approve that shared system, which is now our issue here, where we're looking for approval of this shared system between the 2 separate properties. So
All right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess my request tonight is that the system be approved without going through the variance process, and that our Title V waiver be approved as well.
All right. I'm going to, we have Gino, you have your hand up. Was there a question, Gino, or just still have your hand up?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
We can, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, I don't have any objections. The question is what the board thinks about it.
I'm gonna read Jim's notes. No, sorry, your hand was up in the Zoom, so I was just making sure that you didn't have a pressing point before we get to Jim's and move forward. So, Jim's notes. I met with the attorney for the property owner of the above property regarding the requested Title V waiver. During the review of the Title V waiver process, it was revealed the existing sewage disposal system serves 2 properties, which will be held in separate ownership, creating a shared system in accordance with Title V, which is where we started with this a while back. The Title V allows shared system for new construction and for the upgrade of failed sewage systems. When the property once in common ownership is divided into individual lots which share an existing system, Title V requires the owners to obtain a shared system approval from the Board of Health. The approval of a shared system requires compliance with the relevant sections of Title V, and the approval of a grant of a Title V covenant and easement. It's a legal document which outlines the rights and obligations of the parties to the shared system, which includes a financial mechanism which enables the Board of Health to address situations with the system if the parties failed to address the situation on their own. One of the requirements for the board's approval of a shared system in the installation of a system in compliance with Title V, the applicant is looking for a Title V waiver to allow the use of a non-compliant and failed system until the property can be connected to the new town sewer system. In my meeting with the attorneys, they suggested a proposed agreement with the board to provide necessary protections and outline the rights and obligations as noted in 310 CMR 15290 shared system section of the Title V. After reviewing the relevant sections of Title V, I believe the board could take the following actions to protect the town and to allow the Title V waiver to move forward. The section of Title V which triggers the need for a shared system is 310 CMR 15010, Division and Aggregation of Facilities. 310 CMR 15010, Part 2, provided below. Apologize, moved too fast. Prior to the dividing of a facility, all existing systems shall be inspected in accordance with CMR. Division of the facility shall not be approved unless the approving authority has determined that the division will not put existing systems in non-compliance with Title V, and the applicant has demonstrated to the satisfaction of the approving authority that the division of the property will not prevent the upgrade of existing systems in accordance with Title V. Failed systems shall be upgraded in accordance with 310 CMR. Existing systems shall be altered as required by the approving authority for each new facility divided out of the original facility. Prior to the division of the facility, any shared system to be created as a result of the division shall comply with CMR, and the owner or operator shall obtain a shared system approval if the system will serve more than one facility after the division of the facility. This is why I'm not an attorney. So back to Jim's notes, the board could consider a variance to this section, and as a condition of the variance approval, have the owners include the applicable requirements for a shared system approval into the Title V waiver. The Title V waiver document will be recorded in the deeds for the properties in question. This would allow you to incorporate the legal protections, rights, and obligations of the financial assurance mechanism into the waiver document without requirement of installation of a Title V compliant system. So my read of that is basically to allow a new existing, if that makes sense, a new existing shared system, a previously non-shared system to become a shared system. It needs to have two pieces. It needs to be Title V compliant, and it needs a shared system agreement. This started with that the system is not in Title V compliance and did not have a shared system agreement. So it sounds like Jim's interpretation after speaking with the attorneys is that we can grant a waiver for the so that the shared system agreement is still required, and that shared system agreement will protect if the system continues to be in failure without adequate remediation until it connects to town sewer. Does that sound kind of like the elevator version of all that? Emily, does that kind of sound what you guys got to?
Essentially. So, there's two options kind of for the shared system. Either the board can approve, if it's compliant with Title V, and again, the provisions of, the shared system, portion. And again, it's that would include us, filing an application with the board with complete plans, and proposed operation and maintenance of the system, and again, with the financial assurance mechanism and the covenant easement agreement. Again, I don't think for our situation that that would be beneficial for everyone, because the system, according to our Title V inspection report, was constructed in around 1957. So it's, I don't believe that we'll have plans or anything like that. So I think we are looking for, again, we're I guess, as Jim's recommending, we would move forward with requesting a variance from those sections, basically for the board to approve the shared system in the interim, between now and hooking up to the town system.
All right, I'm going to go to the board. We'll again do it alphabetically. Kevin Baker,
What is your projected tie-in date for town sewer?
So last we heard, they were saying, hopefully 2 years. I'd like to get a better kind of recommendation from, so I'm gonna reach out to them, to, water and sewer. But, construction is in the works. We see, pipes being laid, especially, on Stevens Street, currently. So, again, we are hoping as soon as, possible. And I think,
So 2 years at the earliest, probably.
yeah, correct. Yes. And, essentially,
Could you not reach an agreement?
so, the agreement, there's a standard, Title V covenant in agreement, in the regulations. And unfortunately, Jim was looking for these, the exact, agreement, and it just didn't fit our situation. It had provisions that were untrue. So for our situation, again, saying that, the board has reviewed the plans and,
580,338.
and again, so the agreement also stated that the shared system had been approved by the board. So, going back and forth with that agreement, we realized that, to be in compliance with the provisions of the CMR, we would probably have to go forward with the variance, and that's kind of
Yeah,
where
'cause
we're
I don't
at
think the board
today.
has, I don't think the board has, I don't want to speak for these guys. I don't think we have the appetite to approve that as a shared system. So I'm curious, how big is that tank? And how much water do you run through it? Every quarter, every month? Now they're doing monthly water bills, so we can figure that out.
Yeah, so let me see. The average of for both buildings was 347 gallons per day.
And do you know how big the tank is? Is it a 1,500? Yeah, I would imagine it's like 750 or something.
I imagine, and we've spoken to Jim about it. Believe it's not very big. There's not a lot of room, back there in between the two
So
buildings.
maybe it fills up every other day. Maybe it fills up every other day. And it goes in the groundwater.
Yeah. I'm not.
Just to not beat around the bush, I feel like the shared system that gets approved is a tight tank. So I don't know if you want to continue. I mean, let's talk about it.
I am not I have no appetite to approve a waiver to do this at all, because if you've got 350 gallons coming out and you have a 1,500 gallon tank, that's 4.5 days and it's now flowing into the groundwater. And that is just not okay. And when we talked about waivers for hooking up to the town sewer system, it was that there would be a drawing processes, and the only thing that we even talked about as a board at that time was a tight tank. And you're looking at a tight tank that you have to come and pump every 4 days if it's a 1,500 gallon tank, if you have room to put it on your property. And if it's a smaller tank, if it's a 750 or something like that, like we just figured out, that's a day and a half, 2 days tops, and you're pumping that thing every other day. But we're here to protect the groundwater, and by just letting the system go for another 2.5 years, that ain't going by me. Sorry.
thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Pradaloni, any comments, questions? Gino, any questions? All right, so I think we certainly have looked at that window for a failed system with the availability anticipated for town sewer
Mhm.
as a general principle across town.
So,
So right now, it sounds like our options are, if we grant it, then there needs to be remediation for the existing system, which it sounds like a little more information about size of the tank, estimated water flows, and pumping. If we don't approve it, then the system remains in failure. We still continue to have two properties feeding into a failed system. And there still needs to be remediation. So I guess I'm just trying to work through thinking out loud here a little bit of, we have a failed system that needs to be addressed.
Mhm.
That's our first step. The shared system agreement in my mind is secondary. We have a failed system that needs to be addressed in a congested part of town. Was there a remediation plan proposed for this 2-year window until town sewer is able to be connected to? Was there a remediation plan? Because obviously we can't just let the system continue functioning as is for 2 years in failed status.
yeah, so, I mean, I believe, it was system inspection. So when I spoke with, Rada, RM Rada, who prepared the inspection, so their understanding, and again, I'm just looking through this a little bit further. So it is a cesspool. There is, so I think and talking to Jim and Rada, so, they had prepared the, they had pumped when they prepared the inspection report, and they said prior to them pumping, they didn't have any records of pumping for, I said since 2014, I believe. So, and their opinion was that it didn't need to be pumped. Because we did ask if, for remedial measures, how often they would recommend pumping, and they stated that they, wouldn't need to pump it. It didn't appear that it needed to be pumped in the interim. But if it needed to be, then, we could certainly have it pumped. And Jim's other thoughts were, if they realized, that so when he went and took a look, he didn't see any overflow or anything like that as well. So he said if that were to be found in the interim, again, a tight tank would be his proposal for the interim until the sewer system got put in place.
Just ask back. Gino, do you have any questions or comments? All right. I do not have any hands in the audience for this one. Any motions or discussions from the board about next steps?
Help me understand something. I mean, my grandmother had a cesspool when it was built in the 1920s, and it's just an area to hold. It doesn't do any treatment. It doesn't allow it to get the solids or anything out of it or anything like that. So the liquids just go into the groundwater by standard leaching, as if we had a leach field, if I'm correct. But eventually the solids just like fill it up, and then there's no place for anything to go. Is that correct? Am I correct, board?
Without being a Title V expert, that yes, you can have. There's a couple different styles that it can simply be the equivalent of a huge dry well that's not dry. It goes in
At 350 gallons a day.
like a pit ravine. It goes in. Solids collect the bottom. Fluids either go out through the walls, passively, or out through the bottom if it's a gravel or sand base like a dry well. or it can be a two chamber where basically it looks like a leaching field. It goes into one tank, solid settle, fluids move over to a dry well, and then leach out that way. So it is really depends on what it's built up, but eventually, yes, those solids, either case, are in fact going to slowly fill that space like any other
Yeah.
tank would.
Yep. Okay. So it's a failed system. We already know that. And like you said, we have to do something about this. So I don't see any other way to do this other than to say, go fix the failed system. What do you think, Mr. Baker?
I was going to suggest to Attorney Langlis that they submit a design for an installation of a tight tank to serve both of these properties for the 2-year period while they're waiting to connect to town sewer, and come up with a maintenance agreement to make sure it's compliant with Title V. Bring it before the board as soon as you can, so we can approve it, get you your waiver, and move on.
Yeah, I don't see any other path.
I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Thing's been there forever in failure, and we're just all now learning about it. And I don't know what else to say.
The board, would we like to continue this hearing until requested, or would we like to close this hearing and this waiver request and have it come back before us as a proposed Title V compliant system with a shared service agreement?
It would be a repair.
I would make a motion that we continue the meeting out a couple of weeks, like 6 or 8 weeks, if whatever Attorney Lang's thinks that she can get something.
If she can get, I was going to
Sooner,
say,
whatever.
she can get design done,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could come back and, move the date forward for whatever. That's up to you. But what I'm proposing to the board is that we put it out far enough so that it acts as a reminder to kind of be able to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no problem with the attorney calling up and moving it forward if that's okay. I mean,
I
Yeah.
would second the motion to continue.
Okay, so why don't we do if it's acceptable, continue it indefinitely until, and that way if it's in 2 weeks or 3 weeks and they've got a plan and ready to come before us, great. If it's longer than that, then it will be
I'd like us
at the behest.
Yeah, I understand. But if we have it, we'd had meetings before where, we've had it on the books at 8 weeks. And if the attorney just calls up and says, hey, we're not ready to come forward with a repair, please extend it or whatever, we could extend it, at the behest of that request during the meeting. And that'd be a quick and dirty. It's just a way of keeping track of it instead of an indefinite, but
Okay.
Baker?
I'm just pulling out my calendar.
Chair.
Hold on. Yes, sir.
May I feel for the applicants. I think they're put in a tough situation, and the timing of everything, is kind of unfortunate. I do think we need to continue it so we can review a proposed plan for the installation of a shared tight tank for a 2-year period. However, I don't think we can turn a blind eye to the 300 some odd gallons of wastewater that is leaching in the groundwater every day. So in the meantime, I would like to propose we order a pumping of this system on a schedule that our health agent sees fit to protect the residents of Littleton and the public health.
Yeah, I agree with that statement too.
I
Thank you.
agree too.
Nice friendly modification.
All right, if it's okay, I'm just gonna try to summarize real quick and then we can vote, and any further discussion, we can make sure we're on the same page, any discussion and then vote. So we can continue the hearing. Attorney Langlis, so we administratively, we're gonna be looking at our December 27th meeting that may be canceled for holiday. Our next meetings after that are January 10th, January 24th, and then we hit February 14th, Valentine's Day. We're happy to work with you as well, but what timeline you think you would like to start with? Because obviously this is going to take a little bit of design work and for your side as well. I don't want to push this out and have it be sitting there. I also don't want to book this for 3 weeks from now with a pretty good idea that it probably won't be ready to come back before us in 3 weeks. So do you have any thoughts what might work from your estimation for the continuance?
Yeah, I would say possibly the January 24th date. And again, if we're still needing time, can certainly request that it be extended out.
All right, so it looks like we are looking at a two-part action here with a continuing of the hearing until January 24th, 24, and that will be modifiable by mutual consent, as well as an order of correction for the failed system with pumping as required and as coordinated through our health agent for frequency and monitoring. That sound like what we're looking at? All right, so if we agree that's the motion, I believe, did we have a second? I believe we had a second
A
for it.
second,
I was just, all right, there we go.
January
Roll call vote.
24th, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker votes yes.
Kevin Davis,
Kevin Davis votes yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Jennifer only say yes, January 24th. I hope everything goes well for the young lady.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you for understanding. Thank you. All right, so we will hopefully see you back soon, and yeah, please work with Jim for a remediation plan for
Okay.
the meantime until either a new system is in place or connected to town sewer.
Okay, great. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, ma'am.
I was just doing a little Googling, and there are two types of cesspools. Up until the 50s, they were common brick and block. During the 60s, they changed to a standard form of precast concrete with holes in the bottom.
The big hole in the ground. Think summer camp.
Yeah, exactly. And then we wonder why there is a high nitrogen load in the center of town. I wonder how many more.
All right. Nope, go ahead.
No, I was just curious. I never mind. Go ahead, sir.
Nope, that's all right. All right, we are at 8 p.m. right now. Our next discussion is around our model Board of Health regulations for private wells. I know this had been a continued discussion from our last meeting as we were consolidating some of the feedback from our agricultural partners, the Agricultural Commission, as well as some resident input. I have not seen that compiled yet. I know, Mr. Baker, you were kind of on point for this piece of it, so I'm going to defer to you if you wouldn't mind leading this discussion for us.
I had sent the draft that we're working on over to Will Pickard, who is the chair of the Agricultural Commission, and have not heard back. I think they have a number of meetings on their radar regarding the orchard and other things they're working on, but he does have the draft and will certainly give us his input as soon as they can. I will ping him again on it to make sure it stays at the top of his inbox. I do have the comments from Mr. Gerbig. I have yet to receive the comments from Mr. Chobak. I need to ping Brenda as a friendly reminder to send those over so I can compile those into the document as well. But at this point, I would make a motion to continue until our January 10th meeting so we can put all those together and discuss it as a full board.
Second.
All right. Can anybody think of any other stakeholders that we may want to reach out to as we're still compiling information? Obviously, the Ag Commission and their folks are going to be a critical piece of this.
I was thinking you might want to entertain an opinion from LWD.
Yep, we can share that with those folks and see what they have for any input. They may have a perspective on impacts that we may not be aware of, or some input on testing of other pieces. So absolutely. I apologize. I'm just making some quick notes. All right. We do have one member in the audience whose hand just went up as soon as I looked up and said that. So I'm going to allow Mr. Gerbig to come forward. Good evening. Welcome, Mr. Gerbig.
Hey, how are you all?
Doing
Excellent.
great.
How are you?
Just one quick thing to bring to your attention. I believe that the state legislature has a bill in front of it that is supposed to direct Mass DEP to look at private drinking water well regulations, and you may want to look to that to harmonize whatever we do with whatever that bill might be. That said, the bill is really just to direct Mass DEP to develop these. So there may not be that much there for you to work with, but wanted to make sure as you were thinking about stakeholders that that bill, which may or may not go anywhere in the legislature, is at least on your radar.
No, thank you very, very much. It's appreciated. Yeah, no, that's great. Certainly DEP came out with the model regulation, so it's obviously on DEP's radar, but certainly how it's implemented, it's still at the local level. So looking at a statewide implementation of some version of the proposed regs, or the model regulation is really, really helpful to know that that's on the burner. So, you wouldn't happen to know the bill number, would you?
I wouldn't, but Senator
Nope, just asking.
Eldridge I believe Senator Eldridge is one of the sponsors of the bill, so I'm sure his office could help you with that.
He is one of the sponsors, Mr. Chairman, and so is Representative Asarian? Pretty sure. I'm looking at a news article right now. Give me a second.
Nope, that's okay. No,
Uh,
just that way we keep a little bit closer eye on it.
Yeah, Representative Sena, Democrat from Acton, co-sponsored with Senator Jamie Eldridge, Democrat of Acton, and Representative William, oh, I'm not going to say his last name, sorry, Pignatelli, Democrat from Lenox. Those are the three. I don't have a title. And it's gone before the Joint Committee on Environmental and National Resources. So if it's not even out of committee yet, or at least it was in September, it wasn't out of committee. I don't know if it doesn't make it out of committee, then it doesn't get to the floor.
All right, nope, we'll take a look and see if we can track down that bill number just so we can keep an eye on the process of that as well. Because a lot of our conversations could be moot after that if the state directs statewide regulations from out of the DEP. So I don't think this stops our work. It just adds another level of recognition that it may not work. It may not go anywhere, but that's okay. We don't mind good work if it's important, and if it stops, it stops. Kevin Davis.
It's Senate Bill S-482. And if we click on a few clicks and clicking on clickses, it has been referred to. Hearing was rescheduled to 9/27, and that's the last thing that's on the MassachusettsLegislator.gov. So that's all that we've got on where it's at. It's referred to the Joint Committee on Environment and National Resources.
All right. No,
That's all I
Chase, thank
got.
you very much for letting us know. So yeah,
Yep.
It's amazing. Some things move very, very quickly through the State House, and some things 10 years. So definitely good to know though that it's out there.
Yeah, it's sure that it may or may not solve our particular issues. Like you said, it could take a long time to get anywhere.
And the House bill is House Bill 902.
902. Thank you, sir.
Very welcome.
All right. So continue the discussion until, do we want to pick a date? Do we want to, Mr. Baker, you want to let us know when we start getting some things back? What would you prefer? Just
I was going to put January 10th as the meeting date, just to give us a firm deadline and sort of goal to look forward to.
All right. Wonderful. It's a discussion. I don't think we need a vote, but I think we have consensus that we can continue the discussion till January 10, 2024. Our next item is our ID decision support tool. Obviously, Matt Wason is not here this evening. He did not share anything with me prior to tonight. I know our last basic COVID data is now almost 2 weeks old because that's what we're running, where the reports come out on Thursdays for the previous week. Obviously, Thursday's tomorrow, so the last set of data is a bit old at this point. I'm going to pull it up real quick. For the week of November 26th to December 2nd, which is, again, I think our last reported week, there were 2,908 confirmed cases in Massachusetts with 19 deaths in that week. So again, it is still out there. Folks are still getting sick and still having significant complications and mortality as a result of COVID. I have not seen our latest flu or RSV numbers. I can anecdotally share that there's lots of RSV out there from my little hospital side, that we're seeing lots and lots of it, primarily pediatrics, but we're seeing it in the elderly population as well, and a fair number of pretty sick kids with it. So it is also out there. Be smart, be cautious. There are RSV vaccines, although pretty much they are not available at this point, to the best of my knowledge, but check with your primary care physician or your pediatrician. They're going to be your best sources for that information. Any other information, questions around infectious diseases right now from anybody? No. Obviously, there are still plenty of time to get your flu shot if you haven't already. It is still flu season through probably January, February. So if you haven't gotten it, still feel free to go out there and get it. If you are more than a year or so since your last COVID, consider talking to your primary care physician about COVID booster. They have updated the COVID boosters to include some of the new variants, new strains. So please consider that as well. As we said, it's still out there, and certainly anybody with elderly folks in their family or close by or underlying health conditions, protect yourself and those around you. All right, if there's no other discussion around the ID decision support tool, we have administrative matters. I'm going to hold off on meeting minutes for 1 second. We're going to talk about, if that's okay, we're going to talk about our December 27 meeting, which is our next scheduled meeting. I think we have two questions. One, in general, would we like to have this meeting? Being so close to the holidays and vacations and those pieces. As an aside to that, I do know from our LCTV partners that there are some staffing limitations that week because of holiday and vacations, so that they are, as always, LCTV will make whatever has to happen because they're awesome and that's what they do. But again, we don't want to overtax them if we don't need to. If we do not have our December 27 meeting, our next regularly scheduled meeting would be January 10th. So that would put almost a month until our next regularly scheduled meeting.
I think that's okay.
I was going to say, so what is the will of the board? Would we like to cancel our December 27th meeting with the understanding that in that preceding time before the 10th of January, obviously if there's a crisis or emergency, we can always call an emergency meeting.
What's on
I
the?
only-
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead.
You raised your hand.
Mr. Baker, go ahead.
My only concern is that we have to get together to speak about a potential candidate for the health director position.
That is true.
However, that can happen on another day, and we can schedule that 2 days before it needs to happen, maybe.
Good.
You
So-
tell me on not
follow
privy
up on
to
that.
scheduling.
Follow up on that. So the last few days, Matt Wason and myself have been working with Michelle from HR and Town Hall. We've interviewed 3 candidates so far. We have one more interview tomorrow. And then we will bring forward our assessments and recommendations to the board in general. As far as next steps, whether we would like to continue with any of the candidates, all the candidates, or some portion of the candidates. But our next one is tomorrow. Our last is tomorrow. So we would hope to, from that small group, Matt, myself, and Michelle, kind of evaluate our list of candidates and preferences, hopefully tomorrow or Friday, and then bring it forward to the rest of the board. Yeah, I'm looking at that schedule. It's a big gap. If we can narrow this down to a few candidates for second round interviews.
And I also feel like we just move that 27th meeting to the 20th if we can get a quorum, and then see what Brenda wants to put on the agenda.
What's
And
on the
if it-
agenda right now for the 27th?
Brenda actually is on here with us as well, but she just texted me. It looks like we have currently nothing pending for the 27th agenda. There's nothing
So
held over, nothing on the radar right now for that 27th, but that doesn't mean something doesn't pop up. But right now it doesn't look like we are holding anything for the 27th.
My suggestion would be to cancel the meeting for the 27th and be prepared to potentially have to get together a quorum to discuss an applicant, because we certainly don't want to make them wait 2 weeks, actually 25 days until, January 10th. To get to, have the board speak about it.
Would there be a preference? So next week obviously is a few days before Christmas, but is potentially doable. The next alternative, if we don't do the 27th, would be January 3rd, which would be, just over 2 weeks.
Just from my experience, I would say that if there's an applicant that everyone is comfortable with, that we should act as swiftly as possible to make a decision and relay that decision to the stakeholders.
I have no problem supporting a meeting on the 20th or the 3rd. And I concur with Mr. Baker, what he's saying, as far as if we get an applicant, we need to move, because we've already been in the position, twice now.
Do you want to switch it to the 20th?
I think what we're talking about, Gino, is whether or not if you can put a hold on in a calendar for those 2 days, just in case we need a meeting. And I'm saying I can do that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can do that too.
Okay.
But I wrote it down to 7, so I'm going to cancel the 27th. Then. Maybe going to be a little earlier, right? All right.
So first things first, it looks like we're going to agree to cancel our December 27th meeting. And then we're not going to vote to either pick either date, but just make an awareness to members of the board for potentially the 20th or the 3rd or some other mutually acceptable date with appropriate open meeting law notifications regarding our open position. All right. Since it is on the calendar, let's do a roll call vote for that December 27, 2023 cancellation, if that's okay with everyone.
23?
I don't think we need a motion and a second for it, but
December 23 then, right? Am I
We
correct?
are-
I'll make a motion to cancel December 27, 2023.
I second. But what you going to put it? What day you going to put it? December
We
what?
don't know.
20? Oh, you
That's
don't know yet?
TBA.
Oh, okay, so you let me know.
We will.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for the cancel of the 27th, and with the roll call vote, Kevin Baker.
Kevin Baker votes yes.
Thank you. Kevin Davis.
Chairman Davis votes yes.
Gino Fratelloni.
Yes, sir.
And chair votes yes. So we've canceled our December 27, 23 meeting. And then again, just as a awareness level, please keep your eyes open, your emails open for potential other dates prior
Good.
to our next meeting for discussion of potential candidates for the position of health director for Littleton.
It's not right to make the lady there waiting 25 days. She's right.
No.
I hope we can help out. I hope so.
All right, I did get a message from Brenda. She will not be available on the 20th. So we will keep that in mind as we look at dates, and but we can do what we need to do. So, and obviously we'll work with LCTV as well for it when we identify, if we need to identify, once we do identify a date, we will work with them as well. All right, other administrative matters we have on the agenda. We have a number of meeting minute approvals on the agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to go into the shared drive and look at the minutes for 9/13, 10/11, 10/25, 11/8, and 11/29? I see one. I see two. I see three. All right. Were there any additions, subtractions, corrections for any of those minutes? Mr. Baker.
I just had one small addition on the set of minutes for October 25th. I made a comment on the plan for 16 Town Road during the discussion, and I inserted it into the draft minutes. Just said, at what point do we start to discuss a tight tank for this location? And that was a question that I posed, and it was answered by the engineer that he thought it was a non-issue. But I wanted to have that on record since it is abutting the lake parking lot.
All right. Any comments about that edit? Anyone?
No
Okay.
comment.
That's a fair edit.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments, corrections, suggestions for any of those 5 meeting minutes that we discussed?
I know I missed a couple of those meetings, and I wanted to make sure that my name was in absence on a couple of those. I just don't remember which ones they were.
You were absent October 25th.
Yep. And I think the 8th. There were two meetings back to back, I'm pretty sure.
And the 8th. You're correct.
Okay. So then I
Just for
also-
good measure.
8th, 11th.
Yeah. 8th and the 25th. Pretty sure it was the 25th and the 8th.
And I was absent on the 13th.
October.
of September.
October 11th.
Oh, it was the 11th and the 25th? Oh, okay.
That we didn't meet on the 8th in any of those minutes. There was no 8th.
November 8th. You have November 8th of 2023. I'm pretty sure.
Sorry. Yep.
I'm pretty sure it was the 25th and the 8th,
Okay.
not the 11th and the 20th.
Correct,
Getcha.
Mr. Davis.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
No worries. And so that also means that we can't vote all of these like up and then down because I need to abstain from a couple.
Yeah. We have to go one
And
by
Gino
one.
missed. I think Gino missed.
Yeah,
No,
it wasn't my
well.
fault that I missed. The stupid telephone didn't work. I had to buy a computer here. And now I can see only 3 people, but I don't see my face either. I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with this machine. It doesn't like me. So I'm
All right. So let's.
go ahead.
No, that's all right. I was say, do we want to go through one by one? So
Yes,
let's
please.
see. 9, 13, 23 minutes.
Motion to approve?
If I was in a meeting, I approve too.
It's a motion to approve the minutes.
I know.
Making
That's
a
what I'm
motion.
saying. I want to make sure that my name was there on the meeting.
You were there.
Okay, then I agree with it.
So is that a second?
I second.
All right, roll call vote. For 913. Kevin Baker, he looks like you were, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Kevin Baker abstains. Yeah.
Thank you. Kevin Davis,
Kevin Davis votes yes.
I
Gino Fratelloni,
guess, yes, I was in it.
and the chair votes yes. All right, so the minutes for September 13th, 2023 are approved. 10/11/23.
I make a motion to accept the minutes for October the 11th.
Second.
I don't know if it was. Yeah.
All right, roll call vote. Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker votes yes.
Kevin Davis,
Kevin Davis votes yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
The question is, what was I?
You were there. Gino, you were there.
Okay, then I agree. Second. Mamma mia.
and the chair votes yes. The minutes for 10/11/23 are approved. I'm going to pause for one moment. Brenda, you are here with our meeting. Did you have something you'd like to share about the minutes?
I don't see anybody.
I don't know
All
if
right,
she's
now,
got
Brent-
the volume on because
Yeah, I'm not sure. Brenda just messaged me saying she wanted to speak regarding the minutes, so.
Okay.
She also shared that she has no microphone. So we're having a tech kind of day. Brenda has no microphone and Gino has no camera. All right. So Brenda, you can hear me since you were sending me messages by email. So that's good. Is there anything that we need to address at the moment regarding these minutes that are still remaining before us? Or is it something we can talk about, perhaps tomorrow if that works? I'm waiting for bated breath for your email saying yay or nay. If we need to talk right now, raise your hand.
there you go. That's a good one.
Blink twice.
Not now, but in general. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Okay. So yeah, general conversation that, we can take that offline. So back to our administrative matters. We are at 10/25/23. I know Kevin Davis was not there for that one. So I'm trying to pull it up as well as I'm. All right, so we do have a quorum potential for October 25th. We did have that edit to include discussion around a tight tank for 16 Town Road. It looks like that has been entered in track changes into the OneDrive.
Oh,
Do I
jeez.
have any other comments or corrections for 10/25/23?
No, I'll make a motion
No.
to accept the minutes as presented with the edit regarding the comment on the tight tank for 16 Town Road as described in the draft minutes edited.
All right. So we have a motion to accept with the edits. Any second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote for minutes of 10/25/23. Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker votes yes.
Kevin Davis,
Stains.
Gino Fratelloni,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. The minutes for 10/25/23 are approved. Gets us to November 8th. We understand that Mr. Davis was not there for November 8th. Just double checking that we have.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes for November 8th.
Do I have a second?
I don't know if I was.
We don't have quorum. We had 3 members present for that meeting. It was myself, Matt Wason, and Kevin Baker. So we don't have a quorum for that approval. So that's going to need to hold. I apologize. I didn't pick that up first. So we have a motion without a second. We'll let that die. And that gets us to November 29th, 2023.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as presented for November 29, 2023.
I have a motion
And a second.
and a second. Sorry, I was going to say, I was looking down, making notes. I wasn't looking up. My bad.
Oh,
All right,
good.
motion and a second for approval. Roll call vote. Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker votes yes.
Kevin Davis.
Kevin Davis votes yes.
I realize we've just started voting, and I apologize for this. We have Gino Fratelloni listed as both present and absent on these minutes.
Because I couldn't get in.
Okay, so I'm going to.
We missed an edit.
We missed an edit. All right, I apologize about that. So we still have a motion and a second and a vote on the floor. It's all good. Mr. Baker voted yes. Mr. Davis voted yes. It comes to Mr. Fratelloni, who should be abstaining, I believe. But what would you like for your vote, Mr. Fratelloni?
Gino abstains.
Gino abstains. And the chair votes yes to approve. Our November 29th, 2023 minutes are approved. And I believe that gets us up to date, except for our immediately previous meeting on the. No, that brings us up to date, I believe.
No, doesn't work.
All right. Awesome. So we have that one outstanding of November 8th, 2023 is still outstanding to be approved for a quorum. I believe that's all we have for official administrative matters. Does anybody from the board have any other administrative matters they'd like to bring forward?
Mr.
Mr.
Chair, I just
Baker.
wanted to mention to Mr. Davis and Mr. Fratelloni while they're here that we sat with a couple members of the FinCom this afternoon to discuss the budget that will be presented to the select board sometime in January or February. Just going over, Mr. Venuti had sort of, copied over last year's numbers, but they had omitted any prospective health director budgeting, and there were some changes in the administrative support staff figures, as well as advertising, promotion, and travel. So we gave them the information that we had as a board voted on way back when. All those numbers are sort of in line with what we had all been discussing. So they have all that information now, and we'll be presenting it back to the folks that discuss the budget. And I'm sure we'll be asked to come before the select board and FinCom in the future and go over those numbers with them again.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. We did discuss a little bit as we were looking at scheduling that Mr. Waston and myself have been working with Michelle and the HR in Town Hall, and we've interviewed 3 candidates. We have one more tomorrow, so we will share some summaries with the board after we wrap those interviews up and look for next steps. So, so far, some great folks. So we're excited about some of the folks we've met so far. So we'll see where things move forward. Any other administrative matters? All right. Any other member comments, concerns, updates? Nope. All right. We have no one currently in our Zoom audience. My only update would obviously be careful and enjoy holiday season. Be responsible out there, make good choices, enjoy your families, and better to be late than not get there at all.
Yes, have a nice holiday season, everyone. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second. Roll call vote. Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker votes yes.
Kevin Davis,
Kevin Davis votes yes.
Gino Fratelloni,
Say yes.
and the chair votes yes. Our December 13th, 20